Lights give life to a model railway, and I've always liked fitting lights in things on my O-gauge layout. First, it was coaches. This Gresley coach even has a separate switchable light in the toilet. This is an easy build model of the train I used to go to college in when I was an apprentice back in the 1960s. Next, the layout needed some buildings. Kits were built and, inevitably, lights were fitted inside. Then there was a problem. The LEDs were lighting up empty rooms. It was very obvious something was missing. After browsing for O-scale furniture, I soon realised there wasn't much about in the variety the houses needed. What was available seemed expensive. At the same time, a new type of 3D printer was becoming available at a reasonable price. One of these, the Elegoo Mars, looked like a possible. But that wasn't the end of it. I needed other things to support the process. Resin, of course, IPA to clean it up with, containers, microcloths and filters. Also, you have to take precautions with the resin, so I needed rubber gloves and a face mask too. All this came to round about £300 at the time. A fair amount of money, but potentially I could print a lot of furniture, and furniture that would fit in with the period and style of the layout. So the purchase was made. I updated the printer to a Mars 3 some years ago, and that's still going strong. The resin has a very pungent smell, so I and the printer were banished to the garage, where I built a temperature-controlled cabinet to keep the working temperature at about 26 degrees C. The whole process seems to work very much better at round about this temperature. If you'd like to see more details about my particular setup, there's a video on YouTube at this address. Next, a computer-aided design or CAD program had to be found so I could design the items I needed. It had to be free and well supported, as I knew absolutely nothing about 3D design. So a Google search began. There are quite a few good programs out there. None of them is particularly easy to learn, but Fusion 360 is free to hobbyists and is very powerful. The free version is well able to do all that I need, and there are lots of very useful YouTube videos supporting it. So, after a few weeks glued to YouTube tutorials, I started designing and printing things. A small coffee table was the first. If you've not yet jumped into this new aspect of modelling, the CAD program is the main hurdle to jump. Whichever CAD software you choose, there's quite a steep learning curve, but it's well worth it when you get to a point where you can design something and print it yourself, whatever your layout needs. Just to briefly show you how Fusion works, the main stages of the coffee table design are: first, draw an oval for the tabletop and a circle for the centre leg. These are just straightforward 2D designs. Next, extrude the tabletop and then the leg. You're now working in 3D. You can draw on any of the planes, so you can draw a circle to one side of the leg and make it rotate around the centre line, cutting away part of the leg. Apart from a bit of shaping, that's it. The file you've created is exported to slicing software. I use Lychee Slicer, but many people use Chitterbox. Both have free versions, and I use the free version of Lychee Slicer. Then the slicing file goes to the printer via a memory stick. More modern printers than mine use Wi-Fi, but the memory stick works fine for me. Following on from the success of the coffee table, all sorts of furnishings followed. There are chairs, sofas and loads of other things to fill the rooms in all these houses. There's even a Bush TV console like the one we had when I was a lad, a bath and a toilet in there somewhere. Whilst Fusion is very good at designing things with smooth machined edges, it's no good at modelling people. So all the people on here are either purchased as files to be printed off, or, in very rare cases, models purchased directly. One thing I have done to create an impression of people moving from room to room is to control the individual room lights in each house with a random light switcher. Here the effect has been speeded up by about 10 times, but you can see that every now and then some of the lights switch off and others switch on. This is done by a circuit in the roof of each of the houses. The hall lights are generally left permanently on or off because people don't usually switch them as often as room lights. Inspired by the results on the furniture, I started looking for other things I could 3D print. There are lots of little details you can include to add more interest to the layout. Platform trucks and trolleys can be printed off, and one of the benefits of resin printing is that you can fill the build plate with lots of items without affecting the printing time. It takes just as long to print a dozen of these trolleys as it would to print just one. At one end of the layout, just in front of Main Street, there's a turntable and several points of interest that can be enhanced by 3D modelling. Inside J.W. Pudsey's coal office, there's a stove glowing away and a meeting going on. There's a very similar stove over in the converted horse box, where crew are relaxing and chatting. One of the crew is on his way to join the cleaning team who are working on a grubby loco to prepare it for a special. Here, the 3D printed team are working on a 3D printed loco using 3D printed buckets and 3D printed steps. The loco pushed the capacity of the Mars 3 built plate to its absolute maximum, but it fitted just. It may not surprise you to see that stove also appears in guards vans. This particular one is in a 3D printed guards van, also with a 3D printed lamp and its inevitable LED to light it up. There were lots of bikes about in the 1960s, many more than these days, and so these appear in profusion in Briceborough. To buy enough fences for the stations and other working areas would have been expensive, so I designed interlocking picket fence sections — I like picket fences — and printed off as many as I needed. Finally, let me show you how 3D printing saved a loco kit. Some years ago I bought a kit of an LNAR D20. Last year I finally got around to building it. I had a great deal of trouble forming the smoke box, and some of the detailing parts were pretty poorly formed. So out came the 3D printer and Fusion 360, and now I have a new smoke box and a working lamp. The backhead detail is all printed, as are the benches and parts of the underframe. Without the ability to 3D print components, this model would never have been finished. As you can see, there's a bit to do yet, but it's getting there.